Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Soul Extension. I'm very excited today because I'm interviewing a friend that I met at a salsa club, and oddly enough, I love music, and I wish I could play in a salsa band, but you need to have like super high level skills. I feel for like moving music and stuff. But I met Taya. I met Taya at La Descarga in LA, and I just wanted to welcome him to the show. We're going to be talking about Hinduism today.
Yes. Hello. I'm going to give you my traditional Hindu greeting, which is Nityanandam. Nityanandam and Namaste. Yes, my name is Sri Nitya. My full name is Sri Nitya Tyageshwarananda, but everyone just calls me Tyageshwara, which is fine. And yes, I am a Hindu, a bona fide 100% Hindu.
So I know Namaste. I've heard that before. What did the
Namaste.
other one mean?
So Nityanandam, so in Sanskrit, Nitya means eternal and Ananda means bliss. So when you add the M at the end and you tell somebody Nityanandam, it's like you're telling them, it's a greeting, right? You turn it into a greeting and you're telling somebody, oh, I wish you eternal bliss, right? Or eternal bliss to you, eternal bliss to me, eternal bliss for everybody. Nityanandam.
That's awesome. Eternal bliss. I love that. So I just wanted to touch base that you are Latino
Yes.
and you were born with a name your parents gave you, and you decided to change your name when you started practicing Hinduism.
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So first question is, were you born and raised a different religion?
Yes, I was born and raised or they tried to raise me as a Catholic.
Yeah, as most
Um,
Latinos do.
but I think after a certain point in my life, my parents just not that they gave up on Catholicism. I think they were still religious, and I think they still obviously believed in God or some form of God or whatever. But they weren't too heavy about it after, like, once I became a teenager. And so we didn't go to church as much. Maybe we went for Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever. But as an adult, I kind of didn't really gravitate towards anything in particular, and I wasn't very active as a Catholic either. So
Hmm.
yeah, later on in my life, I think in my mid 20s, I because through a teacher of mine, I actually I started going to a Hindu temple where they followed a guru, and this Hindu temple is in Montclair. And then I started kind of venturing to that temple on my own without my teacher,
Yeah.
and I became really interested in it. They were having programs at the time, like on not just on spirituality, but like on organizing yourself and doing like self-healing work and things
Love that.
like things very for me and the way I worked, very practical things, right? Like they
Yeah.
had a whole meditation class, right? I remember I took a 2-day meditation class, and you did a different meditation for each chakra. So then I was like, I got really into it, only on the logical side, like, oh, this is very life practical, I'm going to use this, right? And then I found out in 2016 that they had a big program with their guru in
Hmm.
India called Inner Awakening. And it was a 21-day program. And I just decided, you know what? I think I'm going to go. I'm going to check it out. And then
Wow.
my wife decided, you know what? I think I'm going to go with you. I was like, oh, cool. All right. We're both going to India.
Oh wait, so your wife was not Hindu either?
She's not Hindu either. Yeah.
Wait, that's amazing.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
she decided she wanted to go too, and so we went. We actually met this guru. We had a pretty intense, amazing experience. See, we were thinking it was just going to be like a yoga program and a bit of meditation, right? We thought we were just going to lounge around and like, oh, hey, have some chai and just sit around and like talk spirituality. It
Yeah.
was not. It was really intense. It was like yoga at 4:30 in the morning, and
Wow.
then we did like the whole day we were just like working on different aspects of ourselves, right? Different ways we related to ourselves, right? Every day there was something we were working on, just constantly writing. And then we were exposed to really traditional Hinduism, which I didn't know. I didn't realize that's what we were actually going to. Even though I was going to a Hindu temple, I
Yeah.
didn't realize it was Hinduism, right?
Yeah.
When we got there, it was like, whoa, like traditional, like you'd get up at like some of the rituals were done like early morning, and they'd get up and they'd have us all sit and watch the ritual from beginning to end. It's
Wow.
quite amazing.
Hmm.
And so when I got back from that trip, I was really moved by the experience, and I decided to volunteer at this Hindu temple. And I
Yeah.
think more than anything, that's what caused me to decide, you know what, I think this is for me. I've been volunteering there at that temple since 2016.
Uh-huh.
And this guru, his name is Bhagavan Sri Nityananda Paramashivam. He's the guru that I've taken on and I've chosen. And so I follow him. In fact, I have pictures of him all around the apartment.
Yeah.
And so that was my experience. That was the short story of how I became a Hindu.
Yeah. So I love that your calling was very spiritual in itself.
Yes.
And the fact that you had your wife's support and that she went along with it just makes it even more impactful.
Yes.
And one of the things I love about Hinduism is they don't necessarily have like a specific deity, right? They don't have they don't have a prophet, like Muhammad or Jesus.
Hmm.
That you guys can you explain a little bit about that? How like you guys
So actually, it's this is the interesting thing about Hinduism. Hinduism is quite vast, and actually, the proper term I think is Sanatana Dharma, and then that's kind of evolved to Sanatana Hindu Dharma. But Dharma just refers to like righteous action, right? It's a very simple concept in Hinduism. A
Mhm.
lot of these words come from Sanskrit. A lot of these ideas, right?
Yeah.
But it's extremely vast actually. I follow a particular sect or thought process in Hinduism called Shaivism,
Mhm.
which is where for us Shiva represents the ultimate.
Mm.
In Hinduism there's like a basic three gods:
Yeah.
Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma. And Shiva is considered the destroyer or a rejuvenator.
Mhm.
Vishnu is considered the preserver, and Brahma is considered the creator, right? And from there, we have all these other offshoots. But even more than that, right, there's all these different sects of Hinduism that follow their own, that see their own deity as the ultimate, right? So there's what are called Vaishnavites, which see Vishnu as the ultimate.
Yeah.
I already said Shaivites, which are like myself, who see Shiva as the ultimate.
Mhm.
Shaktas that see Devi, or the female, the feminine cosmic energy as the ultimate.
Mm.
Those that follow Ganesha and feel that Ganesha is the ultimate. Then there's some that follow Subramanya, which is one of the sons of Shiva, that see
Okay.
him as the ultimate. And I think I'm missing one or two, but those are kind of the main ones. And then from there, those are the big main offshoots. And then for each of these, especially for Shiva and for Vishnu, they have what are called avatars, which are different incarnations that are
Mhm.
documented. Actually, they're documented in Hinduism and the Hindu scriptures.
Yeah.
Different times that they've come to Earth and taken birth as what are called avatars, right? Where they actually take a body for the purposes of restoring righteousness, right? For destroying this or creating this or this and that. And this is all very, very well documented in the Hindu Shastras, which are the scriptures, and it's pretty well known. The majority of the Hindu temples in India, especially the big Hindu temples, actually are centered around some of these incarnations, right? Or
Yeah.
some people that were there during that time and actually built up these temples. And so that's why temples are really big and important in Hinduism. But yeah, so that's like we do have our own versions of incarnations that we worship as well.
Yeah.
What's kind of unique about Hinduism is that you can choose any one of them, and most people, like especially if you're born in India and you're raised traditionally, you usually have like a home temple or a family deity or some family deity that you all worship together, right? And you all go to this temple for your blessings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And not everyone has to agree with Hindus, like with the different groups.
Well,
They can still be considered Like if I say, "Oh, I practice this," what another person who practices a different one.
yeah, there's not going to be like, there's I think there's maybe, because some people feel what they connect with is the ultimate. There
Yeah.
might be a little bit of that, right? But it's pretty well known. It's if somebody says they're a Shakta, then oh, okay, they follow this, right? They follow this. But even within those, there's like offshoots. There's like even more offshoots. There's even more sects, right?
Yeah.
Because the spiritual knowledge that has been produced through Hinduism is just incredibly vast, right? I have this really nice document that somebody sent me of just all the scriptures, and there's like hundreds of them, right?
Yeah.
That have been passed orally, word of mouth, and some of them have been written down and documented, right, on palm leaf, which was a traditional way of writing these Sanskrit verses down.
Hmm.
But see, in the ancient Hindu Vedic civilization, a lot of this was transferred from guru disciple, right? And so even like somebody like like today actually is a really important day for Hindus who follow Krishna. Krishna is one of the avatars, one of the incarnations of Vishnu.
Yeah.
Today's Krishna Janmashtami, the day when Krishna was actually born.
Oh, okay.
And so, like, if you're a Hare Krishna, right? One of the guys, actually, I'm wearing a Hare Krishna shirt today. It's funny.
Oh, cool.
Look, I don't know if you can see it, but it says
Oh,
Hare
yeah.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, right? If you're a Hare Krishna, today's a huge, enormous, big day for you, right? But even as a Shaivite, I know that and I recognize that this is a very important day for those who are Vaishnavites, those who celebrate Krishna.
One of the things that I like about all this concepts is that if you trace it back in time, you can't really tell who started this, the Hinduism. Like it's
Well, yeah,
one of the oldest, I think, theologies, right?
it's very, very old. It's very, very old. Even like the transmission of the scriptures, right? It's just like my God, it's just incredibly ancient. It really is. It really is. People actually spent the fact that in ancient times there was so much thought and importance that was given to sitting and contemplating on the divine is just incredible. I mean, one of the main scriptures for us is called the Kamika Agama.
Okay.
It's kind of like the manual for how to be a Shaivite, if I were to kind of say it in one way. And just the opening. So obviously this is in Sanskrit, but some people have taken the time and effort to translate it to English. I was reading it one day and I thought, oh my God, this is incredible. Like it's from the morning until you wake up, until you go to sleep. Every action that you do is supposed to put you in such a state that you're contemplating the divine, right? And this is everything that's being described in this, right? It's just like how to build a temple, how to sit when you wake up, what you're supposed to do with your body when you wake up, right? The food you're supposed to eat, or how to worship this deity, how to worship that deity. But it's just like so exact. And this is old. This is like thousands of years old, right? It's like, wow, like this was what people were doing. They were just sitting and contemplating God and how to have that experience.
And I feel like Hinduism is Ayurvedic, right? They focus a lot on how you eat and what you eat and what you put into your body, and that is part of the religion. Am I correct in that?
Yes. So actually Ayurveda is in and of itself, it's its own like spiritual practice, but it's definitely rooted in Hinduism. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big aspect in the West that gets lost because it has an immediate practical benefit. And that's that, you feel good, right? You get healthy, you eat it. But one thing that's often missed, I think, when people talk about Ayurveda is that it's not just meant to give you a healthy body, but to give you that experience, that higher consciousness experience, right? Because you're avoiding certain things, right? In food, they talk about the three qualities, which are rajas, tamas, and sattva. Rajas is any food that puts you into real like agitation, right? Tamas is any food that puts you into like real low energy, and sattva is considered the purest, right? These are also called tattvas, or like principles, right? Okay. But that's considered the food that puts you into the purest state. And actually, this like what we've learned through our guru and what we actually practice at the temple is we only eat sattvic food, right? Things that are no onion, no rice, no onion, no garlic, things without mushroom, things without yeast for the most part, because these are considered the foods that are the purest, that will give you the highest energy for manifesting not just the best physical body, but also the consciousness, the higher consciousness experience, right? Enlightenment and so forth. But it's very, very much rooted in Hinduism, right? And that's unfortunately it gets lost. Same thing with like yoga. Yoga is definitely rooted in Hinduism, right? Whether it's Patanjali Sutras or whatever. But like the way we do yoga through what's been being shared through our guru is we don't just treat it as physical exercise. It's actual ritual, right? So before we have to dress a certain way. We have to make sure we have certain what are called aushadas, right? Certain like spiritual alchemy products on our body. Yeah. We have what's called a tantra taraka, somebody who chants. We actually chant the original verses for the original yoga poses as we do the yoga poses, right? It's amazing, right? The first time I did yoga that way, I was like, whoa, what is going on here, right? It's pretty awesome, but it's very much rooted in Hinduism, right? It's very much meant to give you enlightenment experience, right? Align your backbone to the cosmic geometry, and the physical health benefits are a side effect of that, right? It's kind of like 2-in-1. You get 2-in-1. Bonus.
That's cool, man. Especially when you think about all the people that are doing yoga here in LA, without even thinking or knowing or even considering that it's, rooted in the Hindu religion.
It is. And then there's some things that people do that definitely they should not. It's just not like, I wouldn't encourage it. And it's just, it's very not disrespectful. It's just, if they were to dig a little more into the roots of it, they'd find they wouldn't do a lot of the things they do, like beer yoga and all this other, it's just.
What about that hot Bikram yoga, the one that's like puts you in a room where like it basically burns it up and.
That, I don't know about that, to be honest with you. I'm not sure where that comes from, but.
I did that once. I had a friend who wanted me to do that with her, and
What
I,
was that like?
dude, it was like hell. And okay, just to begin with, I'm not in shape as I'm A shape, okay? And we went, and I had never done yoga before, and it was just super intense, and it was really hot, and
Yeah.
I sweated a lot. I was super dehydrated. I really felt like I was really close to passing out, honestly.
Oh man. Glad you
Um,
did it, man.
I did it. I do want to talk about how passionate you're talking about this, which I really admire, because you're Latino and you like grew up a certain way, but then you found this, and you can tell you really love the Hindu practice. And I'm curious as to how did your parents react? How did your friends react? Did you have anybody who was like like what, where did this come from? Like
I think it's interesting. My parents were, I think they were okay. My dad actually was the one who helped me get to India.
Oh.
I mean, he literally he drove me to the airport the first time I went, and he asked me on the way to the airport, like, why are my dad and I did not have a good relationship growing up, right?
Mm.
And even more so after my parents got divorced. But one of the programs that I took at the temple was that chakra program.
Yeah.
It was awesome because I'll give you the really short version of it. But at the end of the program, we did something called the retrospective process, right? And
Okay.
so you had to not try and heal, but somebody who you had a really deep hurt with, you had to write them a letter and read it to them, call them or whatever. And at the
Mhm.
time, my dad and I were not talking. And then, so I wrote my letter to him. I decided, okay, I'm going to try it with him. I'm going to see if this thing works. And I
Okay.
called him. He didn't answer because I knew he was working. And I left him a voicemail, but I read it. They told me read it to him as though he's right there next to you. And I left him the voicemail. And I never knew if he listened to it or not. But I remember that a shift happened after that process and after that chakra meditation that day. And we started talking more and more. And so when I decided to go to India, I didn't even ask him. Like, I was just like, hey man, I need to figure out how to get to India. I don't know if you have any ideas. Like, I want to do this program. And he ended up being the person who sponsored me to go. I was like, whoa, shoot, right? I just paid for my plane ticket, and he helped me pay the fee for the program. But he was really interested in it, and he used to watch TV all the time. He used to watch like these ancient aliens programs and all the other stuff. And he
Yeah.
used to always tell me, oh, that thing that the deity thing that you guys are worshiping, they talk about it here too. And I see some similarities with some of the stuff that I saw in Mexico growing up. So he was really into it. And he didn't say much about like having a guru or anything like that, but I could tell he was okay with it at the very least.
Okay.
And my mom was okay with it too. I think my mom and I, when I changed my name, she kind of was like, well, what's wrong with your other name? And I'm like, well, it's not, there's nothing wrong. It's a good name. I love it, but
Yeah.
it's more my spiritual path. And my brothers and sisters have been very supportive. My wife obviously has been very supportive.
Yeah.
My musician friends actually have been the most supportive. Like, they make a real effort to try and learn my name. Out of everyone in my life, like they've really, like, they'll call me Tyageshwara. They're very respectful. There's been a few musicians that haven't been very respectful, and they'll like walk up to me and they go, Allah Akbar, and I'm like, I'm not Muslim, I'm Hindu. They'll do all these things, like stereotypical things. I'm like,
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, ignorance is still out there, and
yeah.
that's kind of part of why I do this podcast, to kind of like illuminate a little bit on different cultures and different theologies. Why the name Tyageshwara?
Okay.
I know your name is Adan, or
Yes.
you were born Adan, and now you've changed it, and I'm curious as to, was it chosen for you? Did you choose it for a specific reason? Like, what was the thought
Yeah.
process behind that?
So it was chosen for me, and so spiritual name is really important in your path towards like enlightenment and attaining your goal in spirituality, because it's a constant reminder that this is your path, right? So everyone gets a very unique spiritual name, especially through our guru. And so I had the opportunity to talk to him. I hadn't seen him or talked to him the last, like, since 2017, and I had a chance to talk to him in this past year.
Okay.
And so I decided to ask him. I don't know when I'm going to see him again. I don't know when I'm going to talk to him again. And I decided, I think I'm ready for it, right? I've been volunteering at the temple now for like 4 years. I've been spending a lot of time learning like Sanskrit chanting, learning how to do the authentic Hindu rituals in a very authentic way. And so I decided, I think it's time, right? Because everyone else that I volunteer with, for the most part, I think has a spiritual name.
Okay.
And so the name, actually, he gave it to me. I was on a phone call with him a few months back, and he gave me the name. And Tyaga, it's actually two parts. Tyaga means, in Sanskrit, it's like, at its basic level, it means renunciation, but it's more than that. It's like, it's always putting the things that remind you of your highest possibility and your highest source and what you are, putting those things first and everything else second, right? And so Tyageshwara. So when you put the whole name together, Sri Nitya Tyageshwarananda, right? It means in the eternal space of bliss while doing Tyaga internally. And so it's like I derive my bliss from constantly reminding myself of the things that are always going to remind me of my highest possibility, right? And everything else should come second, right?
Yeah.
So constantly we're asked to do Tyaga, always do Tyaga, right? So if I don't feel like waking up in the morning to do my spiritual practice, you do Tyaga. You always remember to put that first, right?
Yeah.
If I don't want to meditate or if I don't want to eat healthy or whatever, you do the Tyaga and you do that, right? You remind yourself this is what comes first.
Yeah.
And so every time somebody says my name, it's kind of like a little kick in the head to remind me, like, hey, do this, do this, do this, do this. And most people don't know it because I have or at least before COVID, I was pretty active as a musician, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. But I think I'm more active in the temple and with my spiritual practice than most people realize. Like, I'm constantly at the temple.
Yeah.
The only time that I haven't been there in the last few years is when we had the shutdown. When they said don't travel, then we were like, no, everyone stayed home. None of the volunteers were at the temple.
Wow.
Now that it's sort of okay, I've been going more and more.
Okay. Can you touch a little bit on Dharma and what that concept means? Like, what is the concept of Dharma? Why are we trying to achieve that?
Dharma, yes. Dharma is simply, like, again, righteousness in action, right? And I think the basic way I've understood it is anything you don't want done to yourself, don't do it to others, right? And so we want to uphold Dharma. And when it's not upheld, then the world goes out of balance, things happen, right? It's very important that all of our actions are done dharmically, because the repercussions of that can bring karma onto ourselves, right? And karma, not in the sense that, like, oh, what goes around comes around, but we get stuck in a certain thought process or a certain cognition.
Yeah.
And so that ends up running and that ends up dictating a lot of our actions, right? And so if we're not acting dharmically, we're not breaking that pattern, we're not breaking that cycle. But obviously in the world today, right, there's something happening with this COVID pandemic. There's something big that's happening because the whole world has been on autopilot for a while now and has not been acting dharmically. I would say, based on what I'm learning through Hinduism, based on what's happening astrologically, based on what's happening in the world, and you can totally see it, right?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I feel like Earth is going through the shittiest karma that right now. Like, all this stuff you did to our planet, all these things, all these countries that are greedy with money, like, everyone's suffering right now because of that. And unfortunately, there are people, like you said, who aren't acting dharmically, and they are doing things to take advantage and make money or steal from people.
Yes.
And
yes.
I mean, I don't want to get too political on the show, but yeah, it's basically like, it's one of those things that, like, I know there's a spiritual meaning behind what's going on. I agree with that big time. And I only ask for the truth in whatever is happening to come out, because I think that's what we deserve.
Yes, I think this is a good time for anyone, like, anyone who has the time. I know some people are still working and they're still, but even them, I think this is a good time to really reflect on lifestyle, right? And how we live and why we live, especially why we live, the way we live.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it is pretty irrelevant, I think, especially after digging into Hinduism and kind of I've been, like, sober for many years now. I don't eat meat. I don't, I've been straight. Even before then, I partied a bit, but I was pretty vanilla even in my partying, I think, except for like one or two times. But it's the decision to go vegetarian or to stop drinking at the time was motivated purely by my need to work, right? And I was like, I got to have a healthy body if I want to work, and if I want to work, I probably shouldn't be drinking and driving for my gigs, because that's an economic factor plus a safety factor, kill somebody. And then it's shifted since, right, towards like, well, there's a higher consciousness behind a lot of this stuff, and I want to be able to experience that, and I can't experience that, with all that stuff, all those toxins in my body. But I think for anyone, even like the lifestyle, the way we live, it needs to change, and it definitely, this is the time to make those changes for a lot of people. I've seen a lot of my friends totally turn, like, every day we sit for the most part with our guru, and he gives a live talk over like YouTube, and we listen to it. But a lot of the things that he's been saying, like, grow your own food, get yourself off the grid as much as possible.
Yeah.
Don't rely on anybody else, because there's a big shift happening right now. There's things are being upended. Systems are going to be, you want to be as self-sufficient as possible.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of these things that he's been sharing with us, right? People are feeling that there's, like you said, people are feeling that there's something in the air that's happening around this time, and they're kind of already naturally gravitating towards those things. Especially a lot of my friends that are homeowners, like they're already starting to grow their own vegetables. They're already starting to do all these things. I'm like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I've seen a fascination with plants during this
Exactly.
pandemic.
Plants and sourdough bread. Everyone's growing
Yeah, there was
everyone's
like
making
banana
sourdough
bread for a
bread.
while. There was like, yeah, there was a craze for cooking at home. I know what you mean. I've seen it.
And they're doing it. A lot of people have shifted completely to that, and it's amazing. Especially people that I would never have expected, like people that were just like gung ho, I'm set in my ways, and then
Yeah.
this thing just like boom. And they're like, well, maybe I should think about my life, and it's cool.
Yeah, I feel like this whole pandemic has really made me accept my mortality, which was something that like I never really thought about, you know what I mean? Especially when you don't know how this virus affects anyone really specifically. It's kind of like a wheel of fortune basically, like you either get it and you're lucky or you get it and you're not so lucky. So,
It really, you're totally right. It totally is like that right now.
yeah. And yeah, I had to accept my mortality, and it was something that I didn't know I needed to do. Like it was just I not that I thought I was invincible or like Superman, but I'm young. I wasn't thinking like, oh, I could, anything could happen, and then it can. And this was just kind of like a big reminder to me. Can you explain to me a little bit about the concept of Atma?
Atma, yes, Atma is the soul, right? So, see, in Hinduism, we firmly believe in reincarnation, right?
Yeah.
And so the Atma is actually, it's just a part of the whole, part of the collective. But this body that we're taking, we're not really the body. We're more like the soul reflecting on the body, right?
Mm.
And so,
I love that. There's like a concept where like your 3D body reflects a 2D shadow.
yes.
So what is reflecting the 3D body that you have? And
Exactly, and that's actually one of the things that oh my God, you totally nailed it, right? That's actually like one of the, we had a great discourse with our guru, and he said that, like, contemplate that. What is the source of all of this, right? What is that source that reflects onto that body, right? What is that even allows you to think about that? And it's like, man, you start digging into this deep, deep, deep hole, and you realize, God, we're all the same reflection of the same cosmic energy, right?
yeah,
And that's the beauty of taking birth here, especially on Earth, right? Or in this time, is, see, the soul has its own, we take birth for whatever reason, right? Whatever specific reason, whatever thing you needed to experience,
yeah,
you can only experience it here in this body, right? And so you have to exhaust that, right? So there's certain karmas that you're born with that you need to exhaust, that you've taken birth to exhaust, and then there's certain karmas that you take on as you're growing up, right? Because you see other people and there's these desires you take on, and then there's one, two, I can't remember the third one right now, but anyway, these are the things that you want to exhaust, right? And you exhaust them either by living through them intensely or making them completely irrelevant. That's the point of making and doing these spiritual practices, right?
yeah,
It's so that your atma, your soul, can return back to experience its original state, right? We're divine beings having a very human experience here in this body.
yeah,
But when you start seeing things that way, right, that you have infinite time, that you have, you're not, it's not just this one lifetime, you have to finish everything. I think it releases a lot of the anxiety about, like, what should I do with my life? What should I, what is my purpose in life?
yeah,
There's really no purpose except to experience bliss. And then it's like, well, what do you want to do with the time that you have here? How do you want to experience that? What do you want to do, right? It helped for me when I before I went to India, before I became Hindu. I
yeah,
had this really burning question, like, why, what is the purpose of my life? And I really thought I was going to find an answer over there. And then I realized, that question that I've been asking the wrong question. It doesn't really matter what, I could do anything and be completely blissful. And there's so many examples of that in Hinduism, right? So many examples of, like, saints who experienced enlightenment, who realized this through the simplest of actions, right? We consider the simplest of actions, right? There's just so many ways. And so when I got back, I realized that the question I had now was, well, what do I want to do, right? What do I want to do while I'm here? And so it really helped. It helped a lot. But in terms of Atma, right, soul, and where it resides, what it does in the body, these are kind of the questions and the things that we do, the work we do, the spiritual work that we do for ourselves and for others, so that they can realize and lift the burden of these karmas, right?
yeah.
And be more blissful in their life, right? Because the point of all this is just to be blissful.
I love that concept. because a lot of people get lost in the stress and trying to figure things out, and they forget that there's some good times, and you got to feel the lowest lows to feel the highest highs.
You
So,
do. This is
uh,
the beauty of taking a human birth is you experience all of the emotions, the whole range of it, right?
yeah.
It doesn't mean that it goes away if you get enlightenment or when that happens. It's
Hmm.
just you deal with it differently, right? You experience it differently.
I love that.
This is one of the great things about Hinduism, especially for us, for me having a guru that can guide you through it,
Yeah.
is it helps make a lot. I mean, it's like I said, it still happens, but when you're faced with these things, you're
Hmm.
given tools, right? I think that's what's lacking in our society today. We're just kind of thrown into things with no rhyme or reason, right? There's no I. Why would you suddenly send a bunch of hormonal teenagers to a school together, pack them? It just doesn't make it. Never. Now that I think about it, I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. Like,
Yeah.
you want to damage a kid, you throw them into public school, right?
Yeah.
It's like that's the best way to make sure that they don't come out the same, right? But I don't know. Like, I've had friends who come out of public school, just like private school, right? But anyway, just the way we're taught, the way we're educated, the way from a very early age until we become adults, and even after we become adults, it makes no sense to me now when I think about it. And a lot of the things that were passed on, a lot of the information we're given either through our parents or whoever, just because they don't know any better, it doesn't come from a very conscious source. And so
Yeah.
we get a lot of some things that you're just like, why do I got to do that? Like, like when the people ask, like when your family is like, well, why aren't you married? Why aren't you married? Why aren't you married? And it's like, where does that idea even come from that I got to be married by the time I'm like 21, right?
Tell me about it, bro. I'm Latino and I'm 31,
Exactly, right?
single,
It's like,
living with my parents. Yeah, I know exactly what that's like.
it's like, why do I? Because it happened. Why did it happen for you so young? And then you start breaking it down. And you start getting a little bit past, and you realize, some of this really needs to change, right? If we go back
Yeah.
to that concept of dharma, some of this is not the most dharmic actions, right? I'm not saying Latinos are not dharmic or anything like that. It's just in general, right? As a teacher, I found this a lot. Like, I'm like, man, I realize now more and more how many of my teachers sometimes were my age, the age I am now, were probably struggling with the same problems I am now, and how that affected them.
Yeah.
Sometimes they would say some stuff in class, and you'd be like, "Dude, what? Like, what are you talking about?" And now I think about it, I'm like, man, as an adult, as an adult, if I had kids, there's definitely some teachers, some people that I went through in my life that I definitely would not want my kids around now. It's like, because those ideas, and it does it, all those ideas get passed along. It's
Yeah.
not just the obvious stuff, right? The conditioning
Yeah. The
that's
limited beliefs, I know what you mean exactly.
exactly.
And that's kind of just what they know, you know?
Exactly. It's just, and that's I think the source of a lot of the conditioning and information that gets passed along, not just in Latinos but in all cultures. It's just what they know, right?
Yeah. That's
And
what they
so
know.
if there's no consciousness behind it, or there's no like, if there's no like spiritual reason behind it, or something strong like that, right? Then
Yeah.
it just becomes oh God, what's the word? It just becomes dogma, right? And we don't quit. And then when you finally do question it, and you're like, oh yeah, there's no real reason behind that. Why
Yeah.
we've been doing that for generations? But
Yeah. I do want to ask something, and I don't know how sensitive of a question it is, but I've always wondered, what does the red dot mean? And I know you have some like maybe white powder, it seems like.
yes,
What's the meaning behind that? What's up with that?
cool. So this is called a tilak, and
Okay.
depending on, oh sorry, that's called a tilak, and depending on whether you're a Shaivite or a Vaishnavite, it looks a little bit differently. I'm wearing more of a traditional Shaivite type of tilak, which is the round kumkum.
Okay.
Kumkum is just processed turmeric, and it gets processed to turn this like dark red color.
Oh, cool.
And so, if for me, if and specifically the way it was explained to me, it actually represents Devi or Shakti energy, and we actually put it on what's called our Anya chakra, which is where our third eye is.
Okay.
And then the ash is called Vibhuti. It's made usually a few different ways, right? And it's made, you burn either various like sacred herbs and wood. Sometimes they burn cow manure and they make the ash, right?
Yeah.
And it represents, it's actually for us, we're actually putting Paramashiva, we're actually putting Shiva on our body when we do this, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
when we dress traditionally in the ritual attire, we actually put it on 16 different spots in our body. And it reminds us of the impermanence of everything, right? Kind of
Yeah.
like ashes to ashes, dust to dust type of deal.
Okay.
But when we put it on, we are literally we meditate and we contemplate Shiva, and we remind ourselves that this is Shiva we're putting on our body, that our body is becoming Shiva. And you'll find this a lot in the Hindu rituals, right? There's things called nyasa, which is where you actually invoke a particular deity into your body. It's like your arms, before we do certain rituals, your body has to become Shiva's body, right? And so you actually cleanse your body a certain way. You chant certain Sanskrit mantras while touching certain parts of your bodies or your fingers, right?
Yeah.
And it's quite powerful. It's like a science, actually. It's a very, very exact science. And the fact that it's like documented is even more amazing. And the fact that it's like been passed down for thousands of years is like blows my mind.
No, it's really cool. So like everybody kind of has their own way of expressing their deity that they are putting in as the ultimate.
Yes. For the most part, like our temple has like the deities from all the various sects that I talked about.
Yeah.
And so before we do the rituals for each of them, we chant the particular mantras for that deity. And if there's like a very, very specific big ritual happening, we actually invoke that particular deity in our body before we even touch, before we even do anything, right? Before we even open our mouths or anything, we do all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's pretty vast. You know, people spend a lifetime, like there's a temple called Tirupati in South India. It's dedicated to a specific deity called Venkateshwara, which is a form of Vishnu. Families, like whole families, learn all these arts, learn how to take care of the deities, how to dress them, how to do the rituals for them.
Yeah.
And the whole family will actually, that's their thing. They'll take care of the temple.
Oh.
And so you'll learn all this stuff from a very young age, right? You'll learn how to chant. If you look up like videos of young kids chanting, it's amazing to see them all chanting the same way.
Yeah.
But see, we're Westerners and we're learning this, right? We're learning this late in life. So we're all playing catch up.
Yeah.
We probably will never learn it the way they do.
Yeah, man. And I think it's awesome that you've taken this journey at a later stage in life, really, because you mentioned as kids and stuff, they learn it. Obviously, when you're a kid, you learn things faster. So I really applaud you for like, really getting involved and doing this. And, I met you at La Descarga, which is a really cool Cuban bar.
Yeah.
A Cuban cigar bar. And they have some like dope performers and dancers. And you were playing salsa music.
Yes.
And you play bass, right?
Play bass guitar, yes. Yeah.
And I think you play other instruments too, but the day I saw you were playing bass.
Yeah.
So can I ask how you like combine your spirituality with your music? Are you one of those people that you can say that you feel your music is spiritual, or like what you're doing is spiritual?
I think one thing that's actually it's a good question, because what sparked all of this was I wanted to become a better musician. This is why I even went to any of those spiritual programs. I just, at the time, like, I couldn't focus. I had a real hard time learning stuff fast. I was suffering from really bad stage fright, and I kind of was like at a point where I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. What should I do?
Stage fright, man. There's so many people.
I know.
Come on, everyone's looking up at you, or
I know. At the time, this is in 2014, right?
Okay.
I just graduated from music school, and I kind of was going through like a real funk. I was gigging and I was getting work, but things were not panning out the way I wanted them to. And so, and my friend, again, this teacher who introduced me to Hinduism, he's an amazing guitarist, also a Chicano dude.
Nice.
And he's just like, he's the best guitarist in LA, hands down. And unfortunately, he actually just moved back to LA. But he just kind of made a comment off the cuff once. He was like, if you fix things with your dad, your playing is going to improve a lot. And I was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And I got really pissed off by that statement. And I was like, dude, you don't know my dad, right? And so then I started thinking about it more and more. I'm like, man, I'm carrying all this stuff, this emotional baggage that I can't drop while I'm playing.
Yeah.
And so I decided, well, okay, let me try some meditation. Let me try some of this. And it just snowballed, right? Fast forward now, I think a lot of the tools and things that I've learned from spirituality, there's one technique called unclutching that our guru has given us. And it's like basically any thought that arises, you don't give it any energy, whether it's positive or negative, whatever. You just let it come and go, right? You just unclutch. You completely relax from any and all thoughts. And you can do this while you're doing anything at all, right? Whether it's playing music or cooking or whatever, you just unclutch. Yeah. That helped me a lot. That, like, when I started really, really going into gigs, like, that helped me a lot. And in terms of like spirituality and combining the music, I'm a real stickler as a musician, so now I'm like changing gears. As a musician, I'm a real stickler for style and playing styles correctly and authentically.
Mm-hmm.
So I like when I get into something, any music style, and I play a lot of different music styles. I mean,
Yeah,
salsa is I
I've
think
noticed.
what I do really good, really well. And Cuban music I do pretty decently, but I play jazz, I play rock. I like to get into the details, and I feel like the details are where it's at. And so I get like crazy into it. So
Yeah.
I'm not really like a creator in that sense. Like I don't really write music. I don't really, I write
Whatever you
music
want to
for,
write, bro. that's my thing, man.
I
So
know I see your I see your Instagram posts, right?
yeah,
It's just not, it's never been my thing, right? I just love playing it. I love replicating it. I love like my whole thing with what started me in music was just like, why does that work? That was literally what started me. I remember listening to the Beatles and
yeah,
Iron Maiden, and my friends would play the guitar solos, and I'd be like, why? Like, how can those notes work, right? Why does that work? So I've never actually combined them in that sense, but I tried to bring that approach, like what I've learned through Hinduism. Like, I try to bring that to every gig that I do. Like, I like to have people feel like when they have me on the gig,
yeah.
they know it's going to be good. They know that I'm reliable. They know that I bring my best and I
On
try to
time.
make it better, right? Exactly. I try to be on time. Integrity to time is
Yeah,
super important in spirituality, actually.
yeah.
But we used to, one thing that helped me get into spirituality was the same guitar teacher. They used to have what's called kirtan. Kirtan is kind of like, it's the equivalent of live music in the spiritual sense, right?
Okay.
To have a kirtan band. And before I was doing anything spiritual, he asked me like, hey, do you want to play bass in our band? And I was like, yeah, cool. I'm down with it. And I would drive all the way to the temple. We'd rehearse and we'd play.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot of these songs. So I used to play and then I started singing them recently. But so that's kind of one way that I combine them, right? Either I just like do my best, try to help elevate my friends and musicians, try to like, get them, hey, like let's start on time.
Yeah.
I try to be the responsible one.
Yeah, which is hard in the music world to get people on time and responsible.
You guys can't see it, but I'm zipping my lips shut. In fact, we were at a gig once, and my friend's mom, like, she was like, "Oh, you don't drink anymore. Oh, you don't smoke anymore." She was like, "Oh," like she was very impressed, and I could tell she was trying to like, she was saying all these things in front of her son, who's my really good friend, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they're trying like kind of like, "Hey, like
Don't you like this guy?
you should be like this guy." Right? And I was like, "No."
No, I totally get that, man. I want to thank you for taking the time today to speak to me. Honestly, there's so much more I want to ask you, and I hope you can maybe come back to the show sometime in the future, and maybe we could discuss other topics a little more deeply. But I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to do this. If there's people interested in learning more about Hinduism, is there a specific thing because like sometimes Google, right, will show up a bunch of things, and maybe it's not the best things that show
Yes.
up. So is there something that you would recommend for them to look up or specifically do?
Yeah, if you look up like we have a temple Facebook page, and that's facebook.com/NHTLA. We usually post about all of our events and classes. We have a lot of classes and things that happen online. Like we have a meditation class that happens every Friday. It's
And
called
this is open to everyone? You don't have to
everybody.
be Hindu?
Everybody can join. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool.
We have like a sattvic cooking class that happens on Saturdays at 4 p.m. through our Facebook page. We have in Hinduism, there's this really, really big book called the Bhagavad Gita, right? That's like one of the big books of Hinduism. We
Okay.
have a class that happens weekly on discussing that book, right? And let's see, what else do we have? And then I think the best way to learn about Hinduism is once COVID lifts, is just to go to a Hindu temple and spend time there. I think that's the way I learned the most, right? Because you kind of it's Hinduism is very hands-on, and sometimes the explanations, good explanations on. Oh, sorry, one last thing. Sorry, our guru gives daily, like I said, on daily talks. You can just go to YouTube and look up Nityananda live, and every day he's usually giving a talk, and you can just listen for free. And he talks a lot about obviously about Hinduism. His whole thing is reviving Hinduism and reviving it the way it was, right? And so
Sure.
he's been digging really deep into everything, whether it's the sacred scriptures or the deities or the energizing day, all these things, yoga, Ayurveda, astrology. That's probably the best way. I think learning from a source like that is really, really good, and an enlightened source like him. And yeah, and you can, or just follow us on facebook.com, NHTLA. And we have just like I said, our temple has so many deities. My God, we counted them once. We have like 80 something, and not just small ones. I'm talking about huge, enormous deities, like
Yeah.
10-foot ones. And so we celebrate almost every major Hindu holiday there, which is awesome.
Yeah.
a lot of driving and our feet, a lot of time on your feet. But we celebrate every Hindu holiday, like just about every single one.
That's awesome, man.
And we stream everything live. So anybody that wants to watch or learn, that's a good way.
Oh, cool. Well, I want to thank you again for being on the show. I appreciate you. Is it appropriate to say namaste?
Yeah. Namaste. Nityanandam.
Appreciate you, man.
All right. Thank you, bro.
Yeah.